for joining me this afternoon. It's great to have some of our young consultants from around the country getting together to talk about the important and crucial impacts of coronavirus on young people in care and young people with a care experience. Just first up, wanted to go around and talk to people about how they're going at the moment, how they're coping, what be the impacts that they've seen in their life. Muriel, what about you? Let's start with you.
The biggest impact I've had that have affected me is definitely with my schooling, because uni has moved completely online now. So all my classes, and I was an on-campus student for a reason, because that's the way I best study. But now I've had to completely adjust that to becoming an online student, and that's been very, very difficult for me. But the uni has been as supportive as they can possibly be during the shift, and I've also had the support of Headspace, which has that's really been helping. But that's the biggest impact I've had happen. Obviously it has affected my mental health, just having to make this massive shift, and then I think, like everybody else, being unsure about where everything's heading, not knowing when things are gonna kind of stop, because at the back of your head you're kind of thinking, well, I don't want to adjust too much because I'm pretty sure I'll wake up one day and this will all be over. But that's really, I would say, I've been experiencing the same things as most of the people out there in terms of getting very anxious because of what's going on, the uncertainty of what's happening, but also more pressure with just uni having to completely shift, and with holidays and stuff like that, because we don't really know what's happening at this point, not fully anyways.
Yeah, that sounds really tricky. And the support from Headspace has obviously been remote support.
Yes, it has. So that's where I learned how to use this app. So it's been online or over the phone.
And how do you find that working in that mental health space?
I mean, it's not ideal for me in terms of that's not how you want to. I believe in that person-to-person contact. I believe with that within itself is quite therapeutic. Being there with somebody and not having that is quite making an impact. But it's the same thing I'm having with uni, really. It's I'm a person who likes to be there in person and do things right there. But I'm having to adjust. I think that because my main concern is uni, the adjusting to receiving my mental health support over technology is not that big of a deal for me anymore, because I'm like, that's kind of the only place I'm getting support at the moment with dealing with what's happening with uni. So it's not ideal, but it's not the worst thing that could happen.
I've had a couple of bigger sort of impacts, I suppose. So I've got two jobs at the moment, both casual. So I work at a supermarket, work at Coles, but I recently handed in my resignation there. So I've only got 2 weeks left. And that was kind of really bad timing on my behalf, because my other job is support work. So I had 4 clients, and in 2 weeks I've lost them all. Just sort of not lost them all, but, they've all said they want to keep doing support work, but after this has all happened, because, they don't want people in their house and stuff, which is completely understandable. But that just means that because I'm casual, I've lost all that money. And I'm not on Centrelink or anything. So when Coles finishes in 2 weeks, I've got pretty much no job until all of this is over. So, I had to try and get onto Centrelink, which took me a whole week just to put in a claim, because my golf was always constantly not working and unavailable and whatever else, which everyone was, that was happening to everyone. On top of that, so I just got back from Europe, right in the midst of all of this. So obviously I had to come back and do the 2 weeks quarantine. But I was lucky enough, I suppose, to be able to do that at my own house. And then I got kicked out of that house. So my housemate decided that she didn't want me there anymore because I was a risk to the house. Which is, I suppose, her own option, her being the landlord. So I had to try and move houses while being in isolation, and that was incredibly difficult because I'm not supposed to be leaving the house. Yeah, so there's a few things been going on, but it's all sort of coming together. So yeah.
That sounds incredibly tough, Tay.
Yeah.
So have you had much progress with the Centrelink application? And have you had...
Yeah, so I was able to put in the application eventually. So I haven't heard anything back yet, but I know they were saying that it's going to take a while because obviously there's a lot of people applying for stuff. But yeah, so I qualify for the job seeker, I think it is, because I'm in a casual job, but I've lost hours. So yeah.
And the housing, have you had any housing support, or have you relied on your own networks?
I haven't had any like outside housing support. I just sort of messaged a few friends and stuff like that. My relatives weren't able to help me, unfortunately. So yeah, I moved in with a friend at the moment, which was really good of them. They had a spare room, so yeah, and I'm just applying for some other houses and some rentals and stuff. But again, that's kind of difficult in this time. Just having a casual job and stuff like that. But we'll see how we go.
Yeah, that's tricky. Wow, you've done well. Thanks for joining us today when all that stuff's going on as well.
Yeah.
Jake, what about you? What's been some of the impacts for you?
Yeah, so with me, I find myself to be quite a sociable person. So I think with this COVID-19 stuff, it's taken a massive impact on being able to get out of the house. So and with work as well, it's we've had to put our obviously with the stop of, from what I'm understanding, like shipments, because a lot of our stock that we get, like computers and whatnot, come from China and get shipped here, which we can't do our work without the stock. So our work as well has been affected. Yeah, and I think that yeah.
And your work's casual, isn't it?
It is, but I think that like I've been fortunate enough to be able to have a casual role but work full-time hours. So my work was quite regular when there was work.
Well, with me, I had my family go interstate. So the people that I live with, that I call my family, they went interstate because my sister had a baby. So I was alone in a house by myself, which isn't good for mental health at all. So I was really struggling. They came back a few days ago, so I've slowly gotten a bit better. But yeah, this whole pandemic has just messed with my mental health, and I think it's probably messed with a lot of people's mental health. So I would call my mum like 4 times a day, just being like, "Hey, what's going on? Like, are you free to talk?" And she'd be like, "No, I can't right now." So it was just constant, like, what do I do? How do I keep myself entertained? How do I try and stabilize my mental health, because it was getting really, really bad. But I think that's a main thing that's going to happen with a lot of young people. If they don't have people living with them and they're in social isolation, they won't be okay mentally. They will struggle a lot. And I feel like someone needs to reach out to them and just be like, "Hey, how are you? What's going on? How are you dealing with everything that's going on? Do you need to talk to me? What's wrong?" Like, it's a constant having to check in.
Andre, what about you? What's been some of the impacts for you? What have you noticed that's changed in your life?
So I've got like 4 different things that have happened, and with that have impacted me, both positive and negative.
Mm-hmm.
The negative things being, I do a lot of acting and theatre, and we were 2 weeks away from opening before everything started happening, and the theatre company was like, "Yeah, we're not going to put the show on anymore." So that was extremely stressful for me, especially because I use theatre and acting as kind of like an escape mechanism to help with my mental health, which is also the second thing. My mental health has taken a massive drop at this time. I can't actually see my psychologist. I can speak to him over the phone, but the government isn't really giving out much funding for mental health at the moment, which I'm really upset about, because my psychologist doesn't use internet at home, because that's the culture that he lives in, and his workplace can't supply him with internet as well. So I can't really have this face-to-face communication with him at the moment, and that's really, really hard for me. And then third negative, but it's kind of a positive, is I also work as a support worker casually, but my boss is actually helping set up doing remote sessions with the client, which is like she just messaged me out of the blue saying, hey, I know that you can't come in at the moment and stuff like that, but here's an idea, let's try and see if we can get this. So we're in the process of trying to set that up at the moment, which is really exciting. And then the third biggest impact for me is I do video game streaming online. I play video games and chat with an audience at the same time. And a big impact from all of this is my viewership has doubled. So that's a really good thing out of all this.
So a lot more people getting online then, and getting into online gaming.
A ton more people.
Any other comments on what other people have said in there?
I really liked what Muriel said. Like, you don't want to adjust too much because you don't know when it will go away. Like, we're in this uncertain moment of like, when is this going to end?
Yeah. And I think a part of that is just like, growing up in care. To me, thinking about this yesterday, and I was like, this is kind of similar when you go into a foster family and you're not sure how long you're going to stay there for. So you're like, I don't want to get too comfortable.
Yes.
To a certain level, I'm ready to leave.
Yes.
It's time to leave. I'm literally getting those same feelings where I'm like, I don't want to get too adjusted because I'm not sure how long this is going to be going for. So, and then if I get too adjusted and this disappears, that means I have to adjust myself to another pattern. Because to me, normal is just the pattern I'm adjusted to now. So even though someone may go like, okay, now we're just going back to the way things normally were, I don't see it that way. I'm like, I've been doing it this way, now I have to adjust once again to go back to that way.
Okay, well, let's go on to my next question for all of you. So you've each talked a little bit about the impacts for you personally. What do you see, and this might be from what you've heard from other people, or from what you know of from your own experience, what's likely, what do you see as some of the big impacts, either for the children and young people who are under 18 and in the care system at the moment around Australia, or for those young people such as yourselves who were in the care system and are now kind of, living your life as independent adults and going through all those challenges and rewards? What do you see as the big impacts for the young people that we're all standing up for as a group, as Create? What do you think are the big things for them out of this, Muriel?
Because I haven't heard too much about what's happening, but being a person who came from foster care, that's like where my mind went when they were talking about this self-isolation and what's happening. Because I'm like, obviously a bunch of strangers come into your place, and then they get to go back home into their families and go shopping, and so they have all these opportunities where they get to go live their life daily, whatever they're doing, and then they come back and work there. So I don't know what safety procedures are put in place for kids in foster care, because that's your home. So it's self-isolation, that's the place you isolate. But for that person, because there's no way of mandating and controlling what that person does once they've left that space, you're kind of at risk. And that's just how I would feel in that situation. I'd be like, what's guaranteeing me that just because I'm doing my part, I'm safe? Because at the end of the day, I don't know what the workers do once they leave this spot. So I found myself thinking about that quite a couple of times.
So you mean in resi? You mean more in resi care or both?
Yes, resi. In resi care. Because I'm like, people come in, they do their shift, and then they leave, and then whatever happens from there, you don't know, and then they come back and they do their shift. So,
Tay, what do you think are the big impacts? Who are you thinking about at this stage in terms of people with the care experience?
I think it's definitely hard. I was saying, like, I do a lot of support work and stuff like that. So a lot of my clients are struggling at the moment because, I've got a range of different clients. One of them's a 19-year-old who's just recently come out of foster care. And, she said she is finding it really difficult because she's not allowed to go and see her mum because her mum's in prison at the moment. So, they, she was going like once a fortnight or whatever it was, but they're not allowing people in. So, she can't really have contact with her only parent that she's got left, and she doesn't really have any other family around. That's definitely impacting her a lot. Even my partner, his brother is disabled. He's got cerebral palsy, and he used to go to a respite house every day, but that house is closed down. So now he's home, and he doesn't understand why he can't go. Like, he keeps saying, why am I home? Like, because he's got a bit of an intellectual as well. So I think it's quite hard for, a lot of the mental health patients.
Jake, what about you? What do you think are the big issues or things that you're concerned about in terms of children and young people in care, or those that are a little bit older at the moment?
I think with me, I've spoken to two people mainly, and they both sort of said the same thing, where the biggest thing that's impacted them is routine. One young person has, always would see their doctor every second week, every third week, usually every second week, just for a regular checkup, do stuff, make sure everything's good, make sure they're healthy. And now with all this stuff and everything they're hearing and whatnot, doesn't feel comfortable with doing that anymore. It's a bit he's a bit unsettled, and it causes some problems in the placement that he's in from time to time. And as I said, similar with the second young person is that, they're also working at the moment, finding that their hours have astronomically increased due to this virus. But again, as Mary was saying, they don't necessarily feel comfortable with going to work anymore for their own peace of mind. You know what I mean? Their own protection, making sure that they don't get sick. Because, like you might, as Mary said, you might be the one that takes all the precautions, takes all the safety measures, but who says that your co-workers are doing the same thing?
Yeah, that sounds tricky. Just before I go to Andre, I will mention that Create does have a frequently asked questions document or web page, I guess, at the moment, that we're getting designed to specific resources for children and young people in care, trying to answer some of those questions. A little bit about what you both have mentioned so far. What happens if my carer gets sick? Or what happens if I get sick? What's likely to happen? And we've tried to split some of those questions between foster care and residential care, because obviously it's going to look different. Andre, what about you? What do you think are the big issues for children and young people in care or with a care experience in this?
I think the biggest one by far, which all the rest of you guys have already said, is mental health. I feel like it's not getting considered as like an essential service at the moment, and that's really taking a toll on a lot of people. But also like activities that people used to do to help with their mental health as well aren't really getting considered as essential. The other big thing for me is actually money, and coming up towards tax time in a couple of months. With the government handing out an extra $550 a fortnight starting from the 27th of April, a lot of people who have been on Centrelink and just Centrelink, they're going to actually be in a tax bracket now, and they're not going to be ready for how much tax they have to pay. And that's going to punch a lot.
What are people's thoughts on young people who might be turning 18 at this time?
I was gonna say because I think everybody can remember partially what it's like to transition. The overwhelming feeling of having to get so much done at such a short period of time. And the thought of having that, like putting myself back to what my transition was like with this, looming at the background, and then school, because some people are still in school while they're dealing with transitioning. And that within itself is very difficult. Anybody who's transitioned while still in school that I've spoken to has gone, that's the hardest thing, while still trying to navigate, how do I graduate this year, plus transition, because I don't turn 18 till my actual graduation is over. So to go, well, school is going through major changes. Resi is going through their own stuff, or wherever you're staying is going through their own stuff. You're going to have to talk to a lot of people, get your house keys, get that place sorted. Like, it's all a tick list that's probably not going to go anywhere near clean. That's literally it. And in the midst of it all, it's you supposed to keep your sanity going. And I can't imagine what that's like, honestly. I cannot. I imagine it would be extremely difficult, because transitioning is already difficult to do with everything else. So this would be over the top.
With all the extra funding getting thrown around for Centrelink and stuff, you'd imagine that that the government would just go, all right, the stuff that we're doing home stretch, and everyone that's 18 right now can actually stay an extra year.
Stay. Yes, just stay until it's all sorted. Like, yes.
Yeah, and on that, I guess Create has written to all of the director generals for all the heads of the departments in all the different states, requesting that there's that extended
Extra
support. Yeah.
Yeah, that would be amazing if it gets followed through and agreed upon.
Because I mean, realistically speaking, could you transition? Because so many shops are shut. Can you buy your equipment that you need? Can you get the house cleaned? Could you actually do a safe transition? Can you get all your, essentials, your beddings and all that stuff all done before you can actually go in? I don't think so.
Jake and Tay, do you have any other comments on that?
I just think, like, I think even sort of similarly, like, people that are coming out of foster and resi, obviously they're looking for places to stay. And I know that it's probably a bit different in the different states and stuff, but like myself looking for houses at the moment, coming into a lot of issues because they've stopped all of the inspections down in Victoria. So you can't actually go looking at houses, but at the same time, it's also a legal requirement here that you have to physically look at a house before you can rent it.
Yeah, and I think that, like everyone that's older now would have, I guess, had different experiences with their transition. But, for people that are, soon going to be transitioning or looking, around that 17 mark, as Muriel said, this is already, one of the most stressful moments in the young person's life. And then add this on top, you can only, I think we can all agree that you can only imagine the amount of stress that a young person can potentially be put under. Even with ones that have everything planned, have everything, know what's going on, even with the virus going, with the stuff going on with the virus, that can all, like, you could have everything planned and then, wake up one morning, everything's different. And that's going to even cause more stress. So I think that, the Adrian said that having that support there, even after 18, while this stuff is going on, would be a massive difference. Like, that would just be, I guess, would I guess, I wouldn't say fix the stress, but at least postpone it until it can be stress that can be fixed.
Until right now, in a safe space to actually, like, let the stress go.
So the last and most difficult question is really what should be done. I mean, there's lots of things that could be done, but I'd be keen to hear from each one of you, maybe one or two things that you'd like to see done in the government, community, in the care system regarding children and young people with a care experience or in care that you think would make a difference and help make things easier in this time.
I suppose there's two main things which have been coming up quite a lot that we can all sort of agree on. I think that the government needs to be a lot more open to the fact that, yes, obviously what they're doing, keeping everyone inside, it's sort of what needs to be done. But at the same time, there's a lot of people that are dealing with a lot of different mental health issues for lots of different reasons. And, everybody deals with those things differently. You know, whether it be something like, you know, going fishing, or I mean, I like to just sort of go in my car and drive, but I am not able to do that because I'll get fined for it. So, you know, little things like that. You know, there's so many people that are now struggling with mental health, and it's declining a lot because they can't do the things that they're used to doing.
Having that open support for mental health would be amazing. But I also think for this period, because I mentioned the tax stuff before, is increasing the tax bracket so it will help support those people who don't actually who shouldn't be paying the taxes because they're in the poverty. They're under the poverty line, so it'll be great for that to hopefully increase, so we don't actually have to worry about tax time when it comes.
One massive thing that I would like to see is if the support can't be made available where a young person that is transitioning can't stay in with the current situation they're in, or whatever be the case, that housing, they take a priority with housing, whether that be instant, you know, okay, yeah, we understand that, you know, you're turning 18, you know, you're leaving care. It's a hard time at the moment. We're going to do the best we can. We're going to do the best we can with finding you somewhere to stay if they haven't already.
But I was also going to say, because Resi has had an interesting talk with internet, and I don't know where that's up to now, and that's been something that's been going on my head, is I know a lot, when I was in Resi, they didn't have computers, internet, that was a whole other battle. So, and I think now is the most important times to have that has to be there. So whether it's that they can't see their psychologist, if their psychologist is able to see them over a screen, then I think that the government needs to cater to that 100%.
Like they were saying, with Resi units, they need to have the internet access. They need to have the computers, because at the moment, that's probably the only way they're going to be in contact with their friends or their psychologist or anything along those lines. Because at the moment, we got to stay inside. We got to beat this before it gets any worse. So I feel like that is a major thing that needs to be addressed.
Any other final words from anybody here?
No, I'm good.
Yes.
Yes.
I wanted to say, I know there's like a bit of a low budget for kids in care, but like, because I live with my 2 nephews, keeping kids entertained. So for those little kids in care, so those little 7-year-old, 4-year-old, 5-year-olds, we spent a lot of money getting board games and getting stuff to keep these kids going, painting and whatnot. And I do wonder, is that being done for the kids that are in care? Is that actually, are people going, no, actually, even in kids, older kids in Resi and whatnot, let's go out and buy a bunch of board games because you guys are going to be stuck here for a very long time by the looks of it. Let's get a soccer ball. So those type of stuff.
Yeah.
You would hope to think that would be something on the top of their list. How I've always said it is that if you would do it for your own kid, why not do it for a kid in care?